Ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet, welcome to yet another episode of an ongoing weekly series that I like to call Crypto Over Coffee. Every Friday, I'll pick out interesting news, current events, and announcements in the cryptocurrency and technology world, and then break them down for you over a cup of delicious coffee. Today's mug is a Dunder Mifflin mug. The office is great. Today we're talking about Bitcoin's price, Cardano's latest hard fork, non-fungible tokens, flash loans, regulation, and more. Oh, and by the way, in today's episode, as well as future episodes, I will be giving away products, apparel, cryptocurrency itself, and more. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and stop by every Friday so you don't miss out. That being said, I have picked out the random winner of the Trezor Model T wallet from last week. So drum roll, please. The winner is Kai Sears, so congratulations. I've reached out to you to please confirm your address so I can get this bad boy sent out. Giveaway? Check. As always, we will start the meat and potatoes of this episode with questions from the community on YouTube and Twitter. So I will head over to the good old iPad and get started with those questions. Now, if you want to get one of your questions answered, make sure you leave them in the comments down below or tweet me on Twitter at Hashoshi4. First question from Zan S. Can I suggest a future topic? Yes, you can. It would be great to understand the likely increase of miners entering the Bitcoin space and at what point there will be saturation, plus how that impacts the price of Bitcoin. Very interesting question. I would say that we will likely see an increase in miners over time as long as we are starting to see an increase in the scarcity levels of Bitcoin. The more value and the more value that Bitcoin offers in terms of its US dollar or whatever fiat currency equivalent, the more miners that are going to want to get in the game and try to earn those Bitcoins, right? I think one of the main incentives for miners to stay in the game and keep mining is that they believe also that Bitcoin is going to increase in value over time. So even if they're in a pool and they're only earning small fractions of the total block reward, which is now 12.5 Bitcoins and in May will be 6.25 Bitcoins, they're thinking even though we're right at around $10,000 US right now, in the future we think it'll be 50K or 100K, and so our small fraction is going to pay off for us long term. So I think we'll probably see saturation in terms of miners, new miners joining the game, in terms of every year a bunch joining, probably towards the last halving, because there'll be a lot of uncertainty about how transaction fees are going to pay for miners' effort. But I think that overall the price of Bitcoin is going to pretty steadily increase over time, in my humble opinion, because of its scarcity level and because of how solid the protocol is from an economic standpoint. So hopefully that answers your question. I appreciate that one. Seth, Mind Your Biz Estrada, I have a video coming soon with him. He's asking Mac OS versus Linux as good ABW anything but Windows options. Well, I use Windows for video editing because I find it more stable, but I do all my development work on Mac OS and Linux. I would say for the average person, Mac OS is probably better because it's more accessible. There's less available customization options and less options in general. You can go and start diving into the Linux, wormhole, if you will, or rabbit hole, if you will, and you will get lost in how many options and customizations and things that you can do with a Linux machine. So personally, Mac OS for the average user, for the person who likes to tinker and test and customize, go with Linux as your anything but Windows option. Thank you, Seth, for the question. Blockless Monster asks, thoughts on the short-term versus long-term viability of flash loans and if you think they're good for the overall market. I can see how they're good in equalizing arbitrage opportunities, but seem attractive to exploits until systems are more robustly implemented. Another great point. I think that your initial answer to your question is pretty much correct, but I think that it's a viable option, flash loans, as arbitrage opportunities, as a mechanism for funding for people in these sort of instant trades. I think that for folks who don't know what a flash loan is, this is probably totally confusing. So a flash loan is essentially a smart contract based or DeFi process that allows you to get a loan in cryptocurrency, of X number of Ether, for example. And then as long as you pay it back within the same block, so oftentimes in the same transaction, you don't have to pay interest, you're not paying a fee, etc. Right? So it's basically free money to trade with. And in arbitrage, which is where you're playing off the volatility, where you're betting that the delta in prices in two different places might be enough that you can make a profit off of that free money. That's what people are using it for. But this is an issue because flash loans are so fast, hence the name flash loan. They have to happen within the same block, within the same transaction, that a lot of the tools that smart contract developers have to validate the value or the total supply given from the flash loan on both ends is sometimes tricky, right? And so you can get into a position where your code isn't wrong, but there's easily exploitable processes in your smart contract that allow people to steal from your smart contract. And I have a lot more about that later on in this video, about a specific hack that's just occurred or a specific exploit, so stay tuned for that. But Blockless Monster, great question. I do think that there's long-term viability, but short-term, it's dangerous. Damian Spriggs asks, I want to know your top 3 favorite altcoins. You guys know, if you watch my channel for any length of time, that's not something I talk about very often. I'm not really an investor per se. I have a lot of things that I've just had for a long time, and I don't trade a whole lot. So altcoin-wise, things that I'm very stoked about from a tech perspective, I'll be candid with you. I think that Cardano is one, and it's ADA cryptocurrency that I believe in. I really do believe in the technology. I've read the papers. I think that there are strong technical fundamentals behind the project, despite the delays, despite the time it's taken, despite the frustration with the processes and times that they've missed deadlines. Those things don't bother me right now. I think they have strong technical fundamentals, as I said. I also think that I am very much high on Ethereum in Ethereum 2.0. I think people underestimate how powerful this new Ethereum is going to be. And I think people underestimate what Ethereum can do in terms of value proposition going forward. There's so many developers, there's already dApps that are widely used, and Ethereum 2.0 is going to come and make a killing, in my humble opinion. And then I think for my third one, I would go for a product that is more peripheral to the rest of the crypto space. I know, Damien, you're really into crypto.com. I think they have a solid use case as well with the MCO and CRO environment. I think staking to get benefits in the real world, like on your crypto Visa card, really powerful stuff. So I am definitely really high on them. It's really hard for me to rank things in top 3 because it really ebbs and flows and changes. But those are 3 projects that I think are going to continue to make a bigger and bigger splash as this year goes on and into the future. So thank you for your question. Matthew Aaron asks, speculation on the Mnuchin regulations. We talked about this in last week's Crypto Over Coffee segment, where the FinCEN and other regulatory agencies around financial services and finance around the world are starting to take interest in creating regulation in crypto. And there was word from Mnuchin that there were significant things coming down the pipeline. I said in that video that I think we're probably going to see some more guidance on how exchanges have to handle transfers. So we might see the travel rules start to get integrated into exchanges. And I saw today there was an exchange that's claiming they are the first to really accommodate the rules behind the travel rule. So that's one. I also think we're probably going to see more strict definitions of what types of exchange or trades with DeFi coming into the mix. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to be looking at that very closely to figure out how to control funding and all that sort of thing for, financial crime and that sort of thing. So I think we're probably going to see a lot of really focused regulations that already apply to financial services like banks and trying to fit those into crypto. So hopefully we can, as the crypto space, be involved in those regulatory conversations so that no nonsensical regulations are made because of a lack of understanding, right? So thank you, Matthew Aaron, my friend, for that question. Rofesti asks, nice stuff. I didn't know about Keeper. Thank you. This is on one of my other videos. What if they get hacked and my info leaks somehow? Is it 100%? So this question is about password managers, which I think is a best practice for everyone. Create unique passwords, strong passwords for every single site that you have an account on, and then keep those passwords in a password manager. So Keeper and most password managers use a zero knowledge model where your actual raw passwords are never stored on their servers. So even if they are hacked and information is stolen, they're going to be getting a bunch of ciphertext. So the hackers are not going to be able to get your raw passwords. That is why on your client machine, so on your phone or your computer, the encryption occurs with your master password with a bunch of salt rounds, which is just an encryption term or methodology. And then you also have potentially each individual password encrypted itself with its own unique key, right? So you have a lot of layers of encryption. And so the only place where that ciphertext that's stored on the server can be decrypted is locally for you with your master password. So that is the key. They are not storing your raw passwords on their server. They're storing ciphertext, and that's so that if you lose that ciphertext, it's backed up and you can retrieve it and then decrypt it locally with your master password and any other pins like MFA, which you should be using. So nothing is 100% secure. So there are windows or attack vectors for this. Namely, if you create a crappy master password, you lose your master password, someone were to get access to your machine and you left it running, they could hack this stuff. But those are all sort of user error oriented things. Most password managers have implemented the zero knowledge model, and it's, I would say, 98% effective. Not perfect, nothing is. Thank you for the question. Harvey Voss, I hope I'm saying that correctly. What do you think about 1Password, and how can I move my crypto from Coinbase to a hardware wallet, for example? And do you know the fees? Thanks again. Thank you for your question. So I think that 1Password's great. Password managers in general are great. I think Dashlane and Keeper are my top two favorite choices for password managers, but I think that's personal preference. And in terms of moving crypto from Coinbase to a hardware wallet, everyone should be doing that. Do not leave crypto on an exchange. Not your keys, not your crypto. That is the rule. Now, moving from Coinbase specifically over to a hardware wallet, you're just going to pay the network fees for whatever crypto you're moving. Now, some exchanges, they have withdrawal fees. Some exchanges, they don't have withdrawal fees, and you're going to pay the network fee. Coinbase Pro, though, which is the more professional trader-oriented option, does not have any fees. So if you can, by any chance, move from Coinbase Pro to a hardware wallet, you won't pay any fees. They're going to cover your network fee for you. So that's just some interesting stuff there. Thank you for your question. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Now, let's hash out some of these news items that we have on the list today. The first one I wanted to talk about is the release of the Unstoppable Domains browser and IPFS website tools. As some of you may know or may have seen on Twitter, I recently launched my own website on IPFS, and it's beautiful if I do say so myself. IPFS itself is a decentralized storage protocol that is gaining in popularity all over the place. Unstoppable Domains has been working to make it easy to connect an IPFS-based website or an IPFS-hosted website to their blockchain-based domain registry. So that means your .crypto domain, for example, can resolve to your fancy new decentralized website hosted on IPFS rather than a centralized server. To do this, they've created their own Chromium-based browser that's available to download through the link in the description box below, so go ahead and check that out. And they've also created a handful of website templates to which they will be adding many more on their website, so you can easily create your own custom website and host it on IPFS, then route to it using your unstoppable domain. This is a huge development, and it's awesome stuff in the growing number of features that Unstoppable Domains has delivered to its users since its inception. If you don't already have a .crypto or .zil domain, I recommend that you check it out and pick one up for yourself through the link down in the description box and pinned comment below. I'm personally a big fan of this project, and I, for one, am really stoked to see my very own website online and routed to using Hashoshi.crypto. For those of you who are wondering, Unstoppable Domains is also working with other browsers to get domain resolution working outside of their own Unstoppable browser, and so we'll hopefully see that in the near future. I, for one, really want to see it on Brave. I will also be creating an easy step-by-step tutorial on how to create your own Unstoppable website, how to host it on IPFS, and then connect it to your Unstoppable domain. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss that tutorial. It's hopefully coming in the next couple of weeks. Next on the list is some awesome news coming out of the soccer world, a world that I live in very often. I'm a huge soccer fan. It was recently announced that the major governing body for the Champions League, UEFA, or otherwise known as the Union of European Footballing Associations, will be issuing at least 1 million event tickets on the blockchain this year and beyond. The Champions League is one of the most prestigious and highly attended soccer tournaments in the world, and by putting a mobile app in the hands of fans that enables them to enter the event with a digital ticket issued on the blockchain is a huge, huge development. By taking this step to issue blockchain-based tickets, the tournament is taking a step towards the future. Not only is this a cheap, instantaneous way to issue tickets, it also provides the necessary level of auditability and traceability to the ticketing process. Furthermore, it's also an avenue by which they can cut down the wait times at e-voucher ticket claim counters, which is a real problem. The scale of this is also impressive. 1 million tickets is huge, especially in the blockchain space. Now, this is a positive development in the adoption of cryptocurrency, and I hope that such an influential organization doing this spurs on other sporting event associations to consider doing the same thing. In my mind, there's a ton you can do to build on this to make fans happier, to make fans more engaged, and reward them for their loyalty. Tickets could be issued as collectible NFTs that fans can hold on to forever as keepsakes. Ticket holders can more easily transfer their legitimate tickets to others on the blockchain with a clear proof of provenance, so we can help prevent fraudulent scalped ticket sales, which is a huge issue all over the world. Speaking of NFTs, this brings me to my second point here. Arguably the largest Italian soccer club, Juventus, launched a special edition ERC 721 non-fungible token collectible on the SoRare platform for fans to try and get their hands on. Legendary player Cristiano Ronaldo is the star of these digital trading cards, and there are a total of 111 total NFTs up for grabs with varying levels of rarity. The popularity of trading cards is undeniable still today, and with NFTs, the digital world of trading cards is just now getting started. Other releases of NFTs on the SoRare platform have fetched thousands of dollars for the rarest of the rare collectibles, and to me, this is yet another example of how Ethereum and its token standards are being used for real-world use cases and getting adoption today. No one can say that the Ethereum blockchain is not useful, even in its current state. So that's definitely positive news in my book. Now, moving out of the world of soccer and into the world of Bitcoin payments and adoption, OpenNode, a Bitcoin payment startup, has recently announced its integration with Apple Pay to get Bitcoin into the hands of more merchants and shops. This integration, which is currently in beta, allows users of Apple Pay to choose during checkout to convert their fiat payment to Bitcoin and then pay the merchant with that Bitcoin instead of their fiat currency. When I first heard this, I was a bit confused as to why this is a useful product and how there would be demand for it. But after doing some research, it seems that the overall sentiment towards spending Bitcoin is still quite negative. I don't like spending my Bitcoin personally. And on the flip side, it seems that many people and businesses would rather be paid in Bitcoin at a steadily increasing rate. That being said, OpenNode has the opportunity to provide an easy and user-friendly avenue for both parties to get what they want. Merchants can be paid in Bitcoin, and shoppers can conveniently oblige without spending their own precious Bitcoin. Of course, this type of rapid exchange from fiat to Bitcoin to merchant must be done at the lowest possible cost and with the lowest possible friction to work perfectly, especially with something like Apple Pay. So I presume that's going to be the motivation for this beta period that OpenNode is running for this functionality. It's worth mentioning that OpenNode has partnered with Wire for the backend transactional element of this, who has their digital money market license, all that stuff sorted out, which is necessary. And they reportedly plan to use Wire's full package of wallet features for merchants in the future. Personally, despite my initial reaction to this, I think this could be significant in the trudge towards adoption of Bitcoin in small business. That said, I'm a little unconvinced that this is not an idea that can be mercilessly ripped off by competitors. So I'd be curious to learn about what types of protections they have for the technology behind this in terms of patents, copyrights, etc. Now, for those of you who are interested in Bitcoin's price, who am I kidding? You're all interested in Bitcoin's price. Well, here I am doing what I hate doing and talking about price. And of course, none of this is financial advice, nor am I qualified to give financial advice. With that said, here we go. In the words of Cosmo, the fairy godparent, I have good news and bad news. Which do you want first? If you can get the reference that I just made, leave me a comment down below with the show and episode name, and I'll send a random person who gets it right some Bitcoin. First, the bad news. This past week was the worst Bitcoin price drop we have seen in such a short period of time in a really long while, with a heavy rejection at the $10,300 levels on Wednesday. Within a period of about 45 minutes, maybe less, Bitcoin dropped down over $800 in a complete nosedive. Now, I have to give credit to Ryan, otherwise known as Crypto Fiend on YouTube. He called that this $10,300 level would be a sticking point, and he was totally right. At the time I'm speaking to you right now, we're at about $9,500 US for Bitcoin, which is only a slight recovery from that low. Now, there's good news here, and everyone wants to talk about the straight shot to insane prices, the to the moon talk. And for me, a non-trader, whenever we get into that mindset, it makes me really uneasy. If we were to have gone from 9,000 or maybe even from 6,000 up to 12 or 13K in a matter of days, I would have been really pessimistic about the near future of Bitcoin's price, just personally. Rabid buying sprees make me really nervous. That said, I personally think that these types of pullbacks are healthy, even when it's a massive drop in 30 some odd minutes, down about $800. Looking to the fundamental economics of Bitcoin, I am still as bullish as ever and excited and long-term optimistic about the price itself. The good news is that among the trading community, the consensus seems to be that the bullish patterns are still in effect and that this drop is not an indicator of some massive reversal. As always, though, beware of confirmation bias. Usually those who are calling for 100K Bitcoin tomorrow and those who are saying it's going to 2K tomorrow are both wrong, and whether you're bullish or bearish, it's easy to get caught in that bias on Twitter or on YouTube. I have no idea where the price is going in the short term, but I remain optimistic about the long term, and that's all I can say with 100% confidence. In other news, Cardano underwent a successful hard fork yesterday that's part of the mounting push towards Shelley's mainnet release. The hard fork contained updates to the Ouroboros consensus protocol called Ouroboros BFT. This consensus protocol is designed to be a foundational stepping stone to the full implementation of Ouroboros Genesis when the Shelley staking and incentives come to mainnet. Ouroboros BFT stands for Byzantine fault tolerance, which is a common terminology in the world of distributed systems. Byzantine fault tolerance is really referring to the Byzantine generals problem, which in essence is the challenge of reaching consensus among multiple war generals on a concerted plan of action. If the generals do not reach consensus and they act outside of unison, they will likely fail and they will fall to defeat. The puzzle here in this problem, the Byzantine generals problem, is that you cannot assume that each general can be trusted and they might send false instructions to others. Nor can you assume that your communications will ever reach the general at all, and they may already be out of the game. This is a problem faced in every distributed system, not a war general necessarily, but in a blockchain network, nodes are these generals. They must agree with each other on the state of the network at each block. Every blockchain network must be designed to be fault tolerant, where node failures and malicious nodes will be omnipresent. You will always have nodes that are either trying to push malicious blocks or nodes that just go out of sync and are gone. You need to be able to handle those faults. Modern consensus protocols are all designed to address this fault tolerance challenge, and Ouroboros BFT is designed to be a simple fault tolerant consensus mechanism that, to be honest with you, works really well. So here's generally how it works. Servers or nodes each take turns creating blocks in a predefined round-robin manner within each epoch or consensus round in the network. As these blocks are made, each server in the order is collecting transactions, making a block if they're next in the order, if they're in that slot, and then appending the latest block to the longest chain every single time a server in this group makes a block. Now, this is highly simplified, but you get the idea. Now, the most important thing about this hard fork is that it did not create new ADA coins, nor did it create an adopted forked chain. The new protocol with Ouroboros BFT took hold, and it is now the Cardano chain, the only Cardano chain. And the old Ouroboros Classic protocol chain has now terminated, and no new blocks are being appended to that chain. New coins are only created when, during a hard fork protocol change, both forks, the old one and the new, retain significant support from nodes and block makers to continue both chains. In this case, the old protocol continues to grow simultaneously to the new one, and as such, there are two separate chains in operation that have forked from each other and are keeping going. This happened with Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, as well as Ethereum and Ethereum Classic during the DAO hack. Again, no new ADA was created and no actions required if you're a holder of ADA. Beware of scams asking for ADA or promising forked ADA. It doesn't exist. Not your keys, not your crypto. Watch out for scammers. In the world of DeFi, some big news this week was unfortunately revolving around major vulnerabilities and exploits of the popular flash loan contracts. Most notably, BZX, a provider of uncollateralized flash loans of crypto, fell victim to two separate smart contract related exploits that resulted in over $630,000 worth of Ether stolen from the dApp. In simple terms, flash loans are a new breed of DeFi loans that allow one to borrow Ether or cryptocurrency without collateral as long as the full amount is repaid within the same block. This is often in the same transaction as well. You may think to yourself, why in the heck is this a good thing? Uncollateralized loans are bad. This is true. You only keep the money for one block. What can you do with it? Also true. The reason behind this is most often these loans are used for arbitrage, where one can take advantage of the volatility of a market by buying and selling the same or similar assets simultaneously. Flash loans allow much larger arbitrage plays without interest or collateral. However, due to the speed at which this happens, I can tell you from my own Solidity escapades that I would never touch this use case as a smart contract developer. There are way too many pitfalls, trapdoors, and weird side effects that can happen when this much money moves through a contract and execution end-to-end happens within the scope of one transaction or one block. A lot can go wrong here. That's precisely what happened. The smart contract logic responsible for this process was exploited by an insanely knowledgeable and resourceful hacker who took advantage of the way that the contract checked for repayment of the flash loans and was able to walk away with 320K worth of Ether the first time. Then the second time, I'm not sure if it's the same hacker, but a combination of that same exploit plus a bad pricing oracle resulted in a huge Ether payday for that hacker as well. This is just proof positive that even when a really talented team of Solidity developers, security auditors, and etc. are working on something, you can still get hit with this type of exploitation. There's no true bug or flaw with the code itself necessarily, but there's a vulnerability in the way that the code is used. In a decentralized environment especially, you can't hide your code. You can't find a way to protect your code from prying eyes. So if there's a way that the code you've written can be used in a logically legal way, but that is also vulnerable to different exploits, it will be found eventually. And if there's enough at stake for the hacker to go after it, they will. So ultimately, you need to understand that smart contracts, because they're public and accessible by anyone, you don't have the same protections as you would on some other types of code in the more centralized application world. Another interesting development in regards to Bitcoin came in a Cointelegraph article outlining the usage of the latest cryptography advances to power cryptocurrency in the future. The crux of this write-up came from research done by Blockstream, a Bitcoin-focused development firm in the industry. Now, the next-gen cryptography in question was zero-knowledge proofs, which you can find a simple, easy-to-understand explainer video all about in the description down below. Yes, it's my video, and I think it's great, personally. Feel free to pause this video right now and watch that first if you're interested. That said, in my opinion, a lot of the discussion was nothing really new or exciting, with exception to one really intriguing concept, which was Bitcoin sidechains. For those unfamiliar, sidechains are a methodology for scaling a blockchain network that revolves around spawning one or many side blockchains that handle and process transactions in parallel as if they're their own standalone chain. Then those sidechains share the state of the network to the main blockchain, which allows them to keep one unified blockchain record of transactions, despite the fact that transactions in reality are being processed multilaterally or in parallel across multiple chains. However, this state sharing and cross-chain communication stuff is both difficult to manage efficiently and securely, but also often makes compromises in things like replay protection, privacy, and more to work properly. And that's why very few protocols actually use it. However, using an efficiently implemented zero-knowledge proof mechanism, one-to-many sidechains could be created that peg directly to the main Bitcoin chain that could instantly reconcile with main chain validators that the Bitcoin protocol rules have been followed in transactions and blocks on each sidechain. This problem in and of itself is not dissimilar to the one of the core architectural challenges faced by Ethereum in its quest for Ethereum 2.0. The question at hand was, how can we efficiently and deterministically establish a proof between sidechains or shards and our main chain about blocks and things happening on that blockchain? I personally would love to see something like this on the Bitcoin's implementation, though I fear that a hard fork required solution would never fly with the maximalist community at the end of the day, which could stifle any opportunity for this to make it into the mix. So I'll leave this up to you guys. What do you think? Leave me a comment down below and let me know if you think this is possible, if you think it's feasible, if you think that it's positive for Bitcoin. What do you think about sidechains? Let me know. Now, swinging back into the realm of regulation once again, everyone's favorite topic, the IRS has reportedly invited an array of cryptocurrency advocates and companies to a summit on March 3rd that is intended to provide an open dialogue about enforcement, policy, and more. As reported by Bloomberg Tax, one of the primary goals of the summit is to find avenues to balance taxpayer service with regulatory enforcement. Now, every week I get a bunch of hate from anarchists and trolls because I'm not 100% against every piece of regulation on earth. And to that I just respond, thanks. Just to level set here, crypto was not invented to be a method for tax evasion or to rid the world of government. At best, one could argue that it was invented to provide safe haven from reckless monetary policy that the reserve banking people are doing. Back to the IRS though, to be honest with you, I think that this news shows that the IRS is at least willing to involve the industry in the conversation about policy, and this is good. The policy is going to come no matter what, so the more hand actual crypto companies have in the development of the policy, the better off we are. Again, there's nothing wrong with regulation that protects people and creates clear operating rules to work with, but there is a lot wrong with regulation that's made without an understanding of the subject of the regulation or regulation that stifles growth and development of a new technology. Without us in the crypto space coming to the table to help educate and influence regulatory policy, our odds of getting poorly thought out, restrictive, and naive regulation grows exponentially. If poor regulation is passed today, it could take years and years to undo, and that could cause damage to the space and the growth of the crypto space overall. So the fact that the IRS is involving us in the process is positive news in my book. As always, folks, you can find some awesome content to watch here on the screen. I'll link it up, such as my previous Crypto Over Coffee segments. Please do keep the party going and keep watching if you have the time. But as always, thanks so much for watching. Cheers.